Season 2, Episode 9 of Ralph's Cast, Tales from MohawkAd, the podcast for the advertising students at Mohawk College. This is your host, Rafael Ferreira, and today we're going to listen to a conversation that I had with former student, class of 2011, Ryan Chiasson. His work experience through several of the major agencies in Toronto land him a job now as an Associate Creative Director at Ogilvy, Canada in Toronto. So I have plenty to tell and had a conversation with him, and the tips and hints for the students too, as always, in the end, on how to find a creative job and what he expect to see in creative portfolios. It's also included here. I also remember that a lot of the work I did with Ryan since the time he was at the college is nothing but stellar, and it's always been award-winning work for a reason, because of Ryan's dedication and passion for the industry. All right, here we go. Ryan Chiasson. Welcome to Ralph's Cast, Tales from MohawkAd, a podcast for the advertising students at Mohawk College. I have a pleasure today to be speaking with one of the living legends from the program, Ryan Chiasson. How are you, Ryan?
I'm good. That's a lot of praise. You should undersell me before we get into it instead of oversell. But no, it's great to chat with you, Raf.
Yes, the guy here is just the associate creative director at Ogilvy right now, and I was revising all his work this morning before a podcast, and I was like, oh my god, I wish I did most of this stuff. It's amazing, your portfolio, right?
Thank
And
you.
I know it's just a glimpse of the work is there, and I would start saying, let's go through your career path and some of the work process. First, I want to ask you. I remember you at the college, and I remember you in the Mac lab, and the other guy and Jordan and everything. And I remember I always have this saying. I think Jeff is the same. When you get through mid of second year, we already realize the students who get it, who have the click in their mindset, they know exactly what they need to do to succeed in the industry. Some people get it after they graduated, they start working and then get it, and some people will never get it. It's part of our process, but we try to have everybody getting it and understand. You're the ones who very early got this sense of, I understand this creative process and what I need to do as a copy and art direction and everything. You're an amazing copywriter too. So I want you to tell the students what was during the process having college years that you say, I think I understand this, I got this.
Yeah, totally. And I think it did take a while for me to kind of understand. I think one thing for me, it was my second go around of school. So I initially went to university for communications, didn't love it. It was too much about theory, and I'm more of a doer. And so I think, I had that experience, and then I took some time off of school and then started thinking about what I wanted to do again. And I've told the story before, but I literally found my acceptance letter to the Mohawk College advertising program that I applied for out of high school, and I ended up there a few years later. So I think for me, I was very driven as kind of my second go around, very dedicated. This is my time to kind of put a lot of effort into it. And at the same time, I was working essentially a full-time job. So I think, I burned a lot of hours, and I think just fully immersed myself in that industry. I knew it was something I wanted to do, and advertising was always something for me that was kind of top of mind, or something in the communications marketing industry. And I think the more that I started kind of diving into some of the best work that was out there in the world, like ads that I loved, old school Nike ads and old Michael Jordan Gatorade ads, and I started finding things that I wanted to make, and figuring out who did them, what was the agency, who were the creative people that did them, start learning about agencies in Canada, again, who was doing the best work, not just the agencies, the creative directors, the writers. And I think really just kind of diving deep into that and understanding what was a good ad and why it was a good ad. And so, trying to build your own portfolio is one thing. But then I think later in third year, I started meeting with a lot of people. So, informational interviews, showing early portfolio that, a month later, none of that work still existed in my portfolio. So I was kind of lucky to partner with a lot of great art directors. But at the same time, I was getting a lot of really great feedback. So not just from the profs at Mohawk, but also people currently working in the industry. And I think once I started really taking my book around to places that I want to work at, that's when the light really started going off in my head. When you look at your work, you think it's great, and then you realize maybe it's not so great.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for me, it was kind of taking feedback and doing something about it. One thing I find is that a lot of times students will show people their books, but then not really tweak anything in it. So many students have shown me their portfolio, and I say like, hey, come back, show me new work you have.
I see.
And way too often they'll literally show you the same portfolio. And so I think that was something I was super dedicated. I was kind of all in on it. If this wasn't the career I was going to have, no idea what I would have been doing. I would have been like working at Foot Locker or something. I have no idea what I'd be doing for my career. So I think I just kind of sunk a lot of time into it. And part of our crew that we had at Mohawk, we would spend late nights in the Mac lab just kind of thinking of extra ideas, and not just taking the student assignments that we got, but thinking outside of that. And those ended up being most of the best pieces of my student portfolio. And then again, it was just kind of a big cycle of taking those pieces, adding them to my portfolio, showing creatives in Toronto, taking the go bus before school or after school, or literally arriving at Union Station, emailing people saying, hey, I'm in the city today. Can I steal you for half an hour and buy you a coffee, or an hour and buy you a beer? So I think it's just, kind of throwing yourself out there and not being afraid of being told no.
Do you think? I think this is an important part that I talk about a few people who I interview, former students, about this. That sometimes students don't realize how is the all clients free sandbox and briefs to them to execute work. I don't know they know what they have in their hands to actually,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's how I always looked at it too. Like when you're a student, you can literally do anything. If you're getting an assignment to do something for Heinz ketchup, but you want to also do an ad for Nike or Budweiser or, you know, the North Face or whatever brand you want to work on, there's
Mm-hmm.
literally nothing stopping you from coming up with that extra thinking and ultimately putting it in your portfolio. That's your resume, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, even if the project is for give us 3 print ads, why not write a radio ad, or why not, you know, come up with a digital thought, or just like push your limits. And that doesn't necessarily mean nights and weekends all the time. It's using your time wisely and really just working towards that getting better.
I would say, Ryan, that you are the one student that I say I cannot fit one student with the laws of attraction more than Ryan. He
I'm
loves
not that good looking.
exercising. He loves going to for a beer, and he loves the Thai cats. So I think it. You work with sports. You work with beer brands. You work in advertising. How that whole thing happen? I know that's a tons of hard work,
Yeah,
but how? Let's start with this. And by the way, there's not even a bigger Thai Cats fan than Ryan here. Okay,
that's true.
so
That's true.
uh, let's next year, this year. Okay, and that last year was almost we get done.
Painful.
Yes. uh, let's start this whole path with going back to Mohawk and going to TBWA as a young gun. I have a conversation with your partner for a lot of project, Jordan
Yep.
Dunlop, and he went through a few of the process. But it's amazing to hear from a different perspective and some of them. And I want to hear from you on how was the thing going to BWA? How was that process? Was it?
Yeah, I think my internship started, I think, literally 3 days after our classes ended. And, you know, probably September, October of third year was when I started taking my book around to people in the city. And again, finding people that I wanted to meet, finding places I wanted to work at, got great feedback. Most places said, we'd love to take you on as an intern at some point. Back
So
then, a lot of it.
in the beginning of third year, you already started doing the
Yeah.
process of networking.
I've told so many students this. Think about, it's not just your classmates, it's students from other programs that are doing the same thing. And I was trying to get ahead of the ball and knowing I'm not going to get an internship in October, but it's kind of planting the seeds for something later on. And the one thing I encountered with a lot of places was that they only took on interns at a certain time of year. Places flat out told me they only took on Humber students. And my mind
Oh,
was kind of blown away. People loved my portfolio. And then the one place at that time I wanted to work was TBWA.
mm-hmm.
And it just kind of worked out in a weird way where I think 3 different times I came into the city to meet with the CCO, and the meeting would be canceled 10 minutes before, half an hour before. And as a student, you don't necessarily realize that, a lot of things happen over the course of the day in an agency.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you're not a priority, but there's bigger fish to fry if something's kind of going wrong or meetings get pushed back. And I was kind of disgruntled with that as a student, and I didn't really understand that. And so finally I met with the CCO and loved my book. We kind of had a connection. He was from out west in a small town. I was from Hamilton. We chatted about football and life, and he liked my work. And then kind of on the spot, he offered me an internship, which blew my mind after that experience. So I think I ended up starting just a few weeks after that. And the
Mm-hmm.
one thing I realized is I thought I knew a lot as a student. I thought my work was great. Once you kind of get into the real world of advertising, you don't really know a lot. Um, so I think for me, it was a big eye opener in terms of working on real clients and real brands and having tighter deadlines and having to do revisions and presenting stuff for clients. And it was awesome. Like as much as my experience at Mohawk was great, I found in the first week I learned more than I did probably the previous 3 years. But because I had that base built up, I was more ahead than a lot of other people would have been in different situations.
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely, when you start in an agency, you get into the hyper mode, hyper drive, and you say,
Yeah,
"Oh my God, it's lots of stuff."
yeah,
And you work with a team of amazing people there, and everybody's good. And
totally. Yeah, it was kind of getting thrown to the into the real world and figuring out what the industry is actually like, and it was awesome. That was kind of my first taste of the real advertising life, and I loved it. So it was a great starting point for me.
so you think at that point, you say to yourself, "This is it. That's what I want to do."
Yeah, absolutely. I knew right away. And again, I was probably awful as an intern. They didn't do everything the right way. And I think, figure out what you do wrong to learn from it and be better for the next time out.
Oh, it's part of the process.
Yeah, exactly.
So once you get in there, you already went directly as a junior copywriter to be BDO. How was that transition?
Yeah, that was very intimidating actually. So when I went there, BBDO was probably the best agency in Canada, winning multiple Lions every year, and surrounded by some of the best talent in Canada. And I didn't do well there at all. It was a lot of insanely talented people and trying to navigate the industry, and I learned an insane amount working there at that time. From some of the smartest people in the industry. So it's kind of a good a good way to kind of get your feet wet and learn from the best people of things to do, things not to do, and
Mm-hmm.
like help them, or sorry, have them grow your thinking and shape you and always learn something. So it's definitely a very inspiring place to work at that time.
How was working with car brands and big brands at that point, like Sears, Mercedes Benz, Smart? and Visa Nissan, Gertrude at TBWA. How was that saying of, oh my God, and now I need to
Yeah.
follow a brief and a very specific brief and everything? How was from having a big sandbox to you need now you have all
Yeah.
those brief strategy to follow? How was
Yeah,
that challenge?
it was great. Something like Mercedes is, one of the most iconic brands in the world.
Mhm.
And I was a junior copywriter writing ads for $200,000 Mercedes. So you kind of have to put yourself in a different mindset instead of, I'm this 20 something guy taking the go bus to work from Hamilton.
Mhm.
And this ad is targeted towards someone in a corner office who's making a few $100,000 a year at least. So it's very interesting just trying to find your voice and being able to write from different perspectives and put yourself into a situation you're not necessarily familiar with. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things that I really loved was writing for a brand like that. And then, Smart Car was a very fun brand at that time, and they were kind of polar opposites. So you'd go from, very expensive luxury car brand to something that was known as more of just a fun, quirky kind of brand. Yeah, so I definitely had a lot of automotive experience in my first handful of years in the industry, actually.
Okay, so on BBDO, your next agency that you work with was Publicis. Let's talk about Publicis. I want you to talk me about the agency culture between the other agencies that used to work in Publicis. How was that change?
Yeah, totally. I think when I worked at Publicis, I only worked on automotive. So I went from, you know, TBWA, worked on Nissan, BBDO, I worked a bit on Mercedes and Smart, and that led me to Publicis, where I worked on Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram. And for me, Jeep was one of the
Are
most
you are
iconic.
you are you a car guy?
Not at all. Not at all.
But
I'm
yeah, that's the only thing the laws of attraction don't apply because you work in a lot of different brands.
not. I'm not a car guy, but at the same time, like I think I've been lucky enough where, I have worked on a lot of brands that I love, and I'm like sports and beer and whiskey.
Yeah, we're gonna reach there.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think I've also worked on a lot of brands where maybe when you start working on them, you're not familiar with them, and I love that challenge. You kind of throw yourself into that brand and learn everything you can inside and out about that brand,
Mhm.
so when you talk about it from, the brand's perspective, you need to know what that brand's about, and you need to be able to tell a customer, you know, this is everything we know about this car and here's why it's a benefit for you. And I think for me, the one of the brands I was always attracted to was Jeep. And so I was very lucky to work on Jeep. I think, if you go back into a lot of award shows, it's always at that time it was always one of the most awarded brands
Mhm.
in the world for just simple, iconic print ads. And I think that's something I always tried to do. And from that, I got a pretty good amount of stuff at that time that was in my book for Jeep. Um, and we won communication arts, and that was kind of my first taste of the awards.
Not
Um,
easy feat to do, by the
yeah,
way.
which was awesome. That was kind of a goal. We had a wicked team that had a concept, and then we were lucky enough to win at Com Arts. And then yeah, I definitely I put some good work in my book, and then from there it was just kind of time to move on, and then that led to the Mohawk connection. Actually,
But before you get into that, into the Mohawk connection, I want to see through the years of my career. Well, as I see communication arts, award shows, and everything. I say, what else they can do with Jeep? They did everything with this brand and the cars. And when I see your work, I say, oh my god, they did it. You're able to do super strong work with the brand based on the ads you guys did. I was like, oh my god, this is so good. By the way, I will say it in the end again. You can see Ryan's work on Ryan Chiasson on .com, and we're gonna repeat that again on the in the end of the podcast. But amazing work with the one that I liked it the most was the association of the snowboards on the left and
yeah,
the grill on the car. That's pretty much mind blowing. That was very good.
Yeah, it's funny at that time that was kind of a lot of what Jeep was doing, was kind of using the grill in a
Yeah,
different way, and then now there's 8,000. I wasn't the My team wasn't the first one to do that by any means. People did hundreds of ads like that before, and I think thousands of them since. So it was nice to kind of do those at that time, and now it's been done. I don't even know how you could come up with a new version of it. There's just been so many since then.
yeah, that stuff with the grill and also the ski hills, the trail map with the hills was genius.
Yeah, it was
That
super
was
fun to work on.
very good association. It was extremely nice. Who was with your on your team for that?
So we had my partner at the time, Mario. He was the art director.
Hmm.
He worked at Publicis for quite a while. He was a car guy. And then we had ACD team was Steve, and then Al was the creative director. And we were kind of the car team that worked on all the Chrysler stuff.
The Chrysler stuff. Okay, cool. Let's go back to. Sorry to interrupting you. Let's go back to the Mohawk connection.
Yeah, so from Publicis, I got a random call from a former classmate, Jordan. We were buddies and always talked about working together, and we tried getting gigs together out of school, and then it didn't work out. And then he happened to interview at Sid Lee, and they asked if he needed a partner, and then he asked if I was interested, and then of course I said yes. And then that night I literally went home, redid my portfolio that I hadn't touched in a while. Spent probably 5-6 hours until whatever time, probably after a few beers. Literally redid my portfolio, sent it in the next day, and then I think like under 3 weeks later, we were starting at Sidley together as a team.
That's amazing. How was the best work on City Lake? I think it's a very different agency, isn't it? City Lake.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was very design focused and killer craft there, and I think we definitely learned a lot there. We did some great work, and I think we had some great clients, and I think we worked on anything from Sport Check, Moosehead, TFC. We worked on Axe. Um,
Mhm.
I don't remember what else we worked on. We worked on so much stuff, but it was a great experience together, and I think that kind of helped us grow our careers together and make each other better and make our work better. And then yeah, we definitely had a good run there, and then together actually we ended up moving to Anomaly as a team, and then that's kind of the place we stayed the longest, and definitely
Almost
created a
four
lot
years,
of.
isn't it?
What's that? Sorry.
Almost 4 years.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was, yeah, 4 years for
It's
me.
here 3 years and a half. Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, and then there we got to work on a lot of brands that we loved, and I think like for me, I'm a sports guy. We worked on tons of sports accounts, so we did anything from the NFL sponsorship for Bud Light. We did some Budweiser. We did um, BRP, so we worked on automotive there, three wheel motorcycles. We did the global launch to
Mhm.
essentially put a new product out into the world. That was pretty awesome. So we kind of worked on that from the start and literally wrote brochures and did the launch film and kind of threw ourselves into something we knew nothing about. So it was a pretty great experience, and I think we learned a lot. Just working across so many different clients there, anything from the ones I mentioned. We worked on Hershey's, so a lot of chocolate and candy and beer. Like we touched a lot of fun brands. Sport Check was another one that I loved. So we definitely had a good run of interesting clients there.
Do you think more and more because of you have so much different experience, and I think every single agency goes through reinforcing a specific field on creative. And as you were telling, like the Seed Leaves was a lot about the craft and the design and things. And I can see actually the every single detail was crafted in a way that looks good. It looks amazing, and the logos and the typography and the way you put it in, the music and cinematography on all the ads. How is that whole environment? How much years do you think it takes to you to to learn the players who will help you make the final product, the thing that you actually want, and how your bar is begin to rise on expectations on your team.
Yeah,
How
totally.
that process works, right?
I think it's different for everybody. So in my case, I worked at different agencies, had different perspectives, worked with different people, had different clients, way different types of clients. Working on something like Sears was a lot different than working on something like Converse or Nike.
Mm-hmm.
With the aesthetic, with the tone of voice, with everything. So I think it's just kind of taking learnings from every client, no matter who it is, and every project. Some projects you'd have a bigger budget and shoot a TV commercial. Other ones that might be shot in house, you're kind of doing things a lot more DIY style, so it's almost like you're a student again. If the budget's smaller, you might be the one directing, or your partner might be the one directing. You could literally be the one being like the set designer or doing the voiceover on something. So I think it is good to have the experience doing both, because you're always going to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be the same level director as someone who's a full-time director. But at the same time, if you have a budget that doesn't have a lot of money, you're kind of forced into doing that, which I think sometimes is a very good thing for learning. So I think even for the next time you do that, the things you did right, the things you did wrong, what to work on. So I think it's not really a straight answer. It's just kind of taking learnings from every project and your experiences. And most people are going to jump around to different places, and I think it's just, when you're a junior, it's always learning from more senior people, and learning from the people whose work you like, and pestering them, just
Mm-hmm.
harassing people, and hey, how'd you make that? I want to know how to do that. So I think it's important to ask those questions, and not a lot of people do that.
That's the point. I don't think too many people will ask, and I
Yeah.
think you're asking that and wanting to be part of it. I think it's amazing hint for the students.
Yeah, it's tricky, and it takes a while sometimes to learn that. And I think it's easy to say, yeah, go ask questions and be a sponge and talk to
Mhm.
people. Not everybody is outgoing, right? Like,
Yes.
even if you're more of an introvert, you still have to find that way of learning from people. So I think it's different in every situation, but it's definitely important to do.
Okay. At this point, Ryan, you got through a significant jump in your career from being senior copywriter because Ryan is class of 2011. So you graduated in 2011 and been working since then. I would ask you, how was the transition between being a teen and now you are at no fixed address and you are ACD, Associate Creative Director. So how was that transition and how you feel the transition happening to you?
Yeah. So I went there to work with a partner. So we did have a bit of both, in terms of working, in terms of overseeing work. It's weird. It was a smaller agency, so it was definitely different in terms of the dynamic. But I think it's working on bigger projects and figuring out how to handle them with, I guess, more expectation, and figuring, and it's not easy. It's not an easy step by any means. And I
But
think,
how do you feel like, okay, I think I can apply for this, or I think it's time for move on, and I think I'm ready to do this kind of stuff because sometimes senior people already play their role.
yeah,
Sometimes,
yeah.
how was that process for you? Right.
Yeah, I think for me, I was just ready for a change. I loved working at Anomaly. It was a great experience. I think, just what happens with a lot of people in the industry, sometimes you just get to a point where you need to shake it up a little. And then I got an email asking if I wanted to come in for an interview for that position, and then I interviewed, and then met with the partner, and then it just kind of went from there. So then we just started working together, and then had some nice projects, and started filling our book with some interesting work. And then my partner left the agency, and I was flying solo for a while. And then I think from there, I took some time off from the industry, just kind of as a brain refresh. And for me, it was probably the best thing I've ever done. It was it was just that time, I I think it was on for
Decompress
3 months.
a little bit.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was the best thing. It just made me so hungry, and I think that was kind of during the start of COVID, and I was just kind of, you know, ready for ready for a break.
I
Um,
see.
and so it kind of came my way, and then it was perfect. Just it made me hungry again. And I think after that, I freelanced for a bit, and then it just gave me that hunger to get back into it. And it made me want to do awesome work, and I think it was just like a nice little kick in the pants to do great work.
Hmm. By the way, everybody, the only time every year I used to see Ryan was the ADCC Awards, and I miss it because it's been a few years since we got this to run this, and I know exactly what you're trying to say on sometimes a little bit of break. Have you get in and come up as like a 2.0 version of yourself? Um,
Yeah, totally. I think it was just like an accumulation of you know working a lot, and COVID was crazy, and you know just needed a mind break, and it was honestly, I wouldn't trade that for the world. It's the best thing I ever did. And then it made me so raring to come back and make myself better than ever, and make the best work that I've ever done.
and then where you come to the ACD at King Ursa.
Yeah, so King Ursa, it's a smaller agency, and I think I was just looking for something different at the time. I
Hmm.
worked at bigger places, medium, and this is a smaller agency, and I was very interested by it. And I think before, where I was kind of doing a lot of the work, in this instance I was overseeing a lot more work rather
Hmm.
than being the one working. So I think it was a great experience for me, overseeing beer brands, and like CPG, and like shoe brands. So I think it was a nice perspective, kind of shifting gears and doing more of like a supervisor role, in terms of just doing the work. So I think for me, it actually helped shape me a lot, and make me think about things in a different way, and kind of think about a challenge from different perspectives, since you're not always the one doing the work. So I think it definitely made me sharper in terms of how you kind of look at a brief, and thinking about different ways to do it, and making sure if you're giving somebody feedback, that it's clear feedback, and just trying to help make the work better, essentially, all the time.
How was making the melting pot of all the good experiences you have with creative directors during your career, and of course the bad ones too, because everybody has up and downs on their careers. How was putting in there and say, this is the kind of leader I need to be, mentor I need to be to my teams?
Oh,
How
thank
was that process to you?
It's hard figuring it out, and I think some of the best advice I've ever heard, I've heard recently, actually, from a creative director, was be the creative director you want overseeing your work. And that just kind of made the light bulb go off. Where if I'm doing a project, how would I want somebody to approach me with feedback or guidance, or just having a conversation about the work you're showing? And it sounds like such a simple thing, but it struck such a note with me. We're like, oh my god, like, why don't we all think that way? And
Hmm.
it's such a simple thought, but it's so smart. And I think I try to approach it that way. And it's tricky, you're still learning and still growing, and you're not going to be perfect. And I think it's finding the right ways to help guide people, and learning from the things that don't go well, and just trying to always get better. It's still a long way to go.
How are you, based on that statement, how would you suggest to the students who are very, how can I say, defensive for their work, kind of, oh
Yeah,
my God, the teacher is
yeah.
it's not
It's
going to go that way. Yeah, it's hard to, the
yeah.
criticism, the thick skin.
It's it's so hard to find that balance, where I think when you're passionate about something, you have to stand up for it. It's easy to kind of say, like, here's an idea, no, that's not right, and then you just throw it out the window. But if, like, in your heart, if you know that's the right idea, you have to be passionate to prove why it's the right idea. Not just like, oh, it's a cool ad for hot sauce, but it's like, is it on brief? is it going to get people's attention? Whatever the ask is, I think if you can tick all those boxes, you should absolutely fight for that. At the same time, if you're showing somebody an idea that's not on strategy, or it's not clear, or it doesn't make sense, or if it's just not a good idea, you kind of have to learn to take that and put it in your back pocket. Maybe at some point down the road, that idea is right for something else. And I've had that
Mhm.
too, where sometimes you think of an idea and you're like, okay, maybe it's not right for this brief. Jot it down. Like, I try to keep a Word document or a notebook of just ideas that I've always liked that didn't go anywhere. And then on to the next one. Like, I always equate it with, baseball. Like, the best baseball players in the world get on base maybe, or they get a hit 300 times out of 1,000 times. That's the best of the best. So 7 out of 10 times you're failing, essentially. Which,
Mhm.
it's crazy to think about that. And I think about that with ideas, where even like how many shots did Michael Jordan miss in his career? You kind of shrug it off and you're on to the next one. And I think you always have to kind of learn about that, or sorry, learn from that, where your skin definitely has to be thick. And it's not saying you're going to fail all the time, but you have to be able to roll with the punches. And not every idea is a great idea. Not every idea is even a good idea. So I think you have to kind of go through a lot of the bad ideas to get to the good idea. And it takes practice, and it's something you really have to work at to know in your brain when an idea is a good idea. um and then just those are the ones you fight for. Absolutely.
Do you have a few of those defensive sayings when you're reviewing portfolios for prospective students or juniors who want to work? How's that process for you? How's that saying for you, Ryan?
Sorry, do you mean like when they're passionate
When
about
they show,
the
when they show the portfolio for you, you get it. Usually, when people send you portfolios or want to meet with you,
idea?
do they just say, "Here's my portfolio," or they you take a look before, or you let them present it? How is the
Yeah.
perfect situation for you?
I find like you need to send a link. If you don't have a link to your portfolio, nobody's going to look at it. Where I think, like, back when I was first started shopping my portfolio around, I didn't have a website yet. I don't know how I got the meetings that I got with some of the people. But it is important you know for people to kind of have a quick glance at it. They might only have half an hour to meet with you, so they want to be able to give you proper feedback and go through the ideas. But at the same time, I do believe that everybody should always present their work.
Hmm.
Always, always, always. Excuse me. I think it's important. You should be able to explain the idea and talk about it, and like sell somebody on the work. As much as it's just like the page on your website, you still need to be able to say like, "Hey, here's the idea. Here's how we thought about it. Here's how we got there. Here's why it's great." And I think like so many times people are passive with doing that, but at the same time, students right now, you should be selling me on trying to take your website to my creative director and say like, this student is the student we have to hire.
I see.
So it's like, obviously great work is great work, but at the same time, like, sell the shit out of it and make me want to tell somebody else about you. So I think you kind of have to look at it in that way as well.
So the selling presentation and the passion you showing your book have the almost big share of the you wanting to tell the creative director that you want to hire.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think at the same, when you're talking about an idea, I want to see the passion behind it, and I want to see how you got there. Not just, oh, and here's a print ad for the Hamilton Spectator. Here's the headline. Here's the next idea. It's like, no, like, how did you get to that idea? Especially as a student, it's like, did you shoot that image? Did you comp it? Did you
Hmm.
read the Hamilton Spectator for the last 2 months every day trying to get insights? Or like, what made you think about that idea? And
Hmm.
sometimes the answer is literally, oh, we had an assignment to do a print ad for this, so we did it, and that's fine. But I think there should always be some sort of spark behind the idea.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. We're getting more into this into the end of our conversation, and I wanted to hear more from you about that. last phase here on your professional career path is your current position at Associate Creative Director of Ogilvy, Canada. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And how's has been?
Yeah, it's been great so far. So I've been at Ogilvy since mid-August, with my partner Allie. So we had never worked together before. We'd kind of known about each other. We liked each other's work, and we were both kind of in a situation where we're just looking for somebody new to work with, new partners, and we just started chatting, and we just started chatting with different agencies, and then Ogilvy felt like the right one right away. So we've been working together since mid August. It's been great so far. We've worked on a lot of amazing projects, and I think we've touched something like 9 different brands already. We've worked on anything from Absolute, Pizza Hut, a lot of Cadbury.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Invest in Canada is a big one for us. So essentially, it's taking foreign businesses and getting them to expand into Canada. So if
Cool.
something like Samsung wants to open an office in Canada, this is kind of
Mhm.
the main driver behind that.
I see.
It's so fascinating for me. I think,
Hmm.
it's our ads don't run in Canada; they only run around the world. So they
Well,
would run in Japan, Germany, I think Singapore, UAE. So it's interesting just kind of framing up Canada in a certain way and getting people with a lot of money essentially to open up shop in Canada. But yeah, it's I think for us it's been a good run. I think probably our favorite idea so far was the first day back after Christmas. We
mm,
had some free time that day, and it just so happened that it was the day that Doug Ford had his announcement about COVID lockdowns and what the plan was going to be. And then
okay.
we were watching it while working, and then he just kind of started talking about how he made this decision. It was a decisive decision, and it kind of popped up in our head like, oh my god, this is a decisive decision, this is interesting. And then we just started chatting about what can we do with that. And within 20 minutes we mocked something up for Pizza Hut. And it was just a tweet with an image, and we just kind of played off of that quote. And it was something to the effect of like, what are you having for dinner tonight? Make it a decisive decision. Here's an image of a pizza. And it blew up. I think it was the number 6 trending on Twitter. I think we
Wow.
had like 2 million Twitter impressions in under 24 hours. Like Doug Ford's rival tweeted about it, like holding a Pizza Hut pizza he ordered for dinner that night. Like American broadcasters commented on it. So we actually had insane numbers. I think we had a reach of 180 million people, and it was all organic.
It
It's
was just a social media and tweet.
it's
Is that?
just the right time,
Oh
the
my
right
god.
place, the right people saw it. No paid media. So we just finished the case study for it actually 2 days ago, I think, or 3 days ago.
Okay.
So that's one of our favorite. Like the idea literally costs no money, and so I think that's why it's one of my favorite ideas. We didn't have a $500,000 budget. It's something we literally mocked up in 20 minutes, got approval on, put it out into the world, knowing that that was a pretty big conversation happening on Twitter, and it exploded. We got tons of media coverage, like Yahoo picked it up, BlogTO put it on the front. Yeah, it was awesome.
So timing and the proper way to index was the magic here.
Yeah, exactly. I think, we always try to keep our eyes open again with like jotting thoughts down in a document, and like looking at social media, not just at cool memes, but it's like, if a meme is trending, why is it trending? Is it something you could do for a brand, or what's the conversation in the news or culture or
Mhm.
sports? And I think just always kind of keep your ears open, to see what people are talking about, and you never know what it'll lead to. Most of the time, it's nothing, but I think it's just a good way to stay informed about what's happening in the world. Should be important for everybody, and then sometimes it just leads to something else.
That's. Can't wait to see the case study. Please let me know when it's ready. Okay,
No
I will
problem.
share with the students.
No problem.
Amazing. I will get you then to talking about ideas that are simple and effective and mind blowing effective. I want to go to the Lollipop Exhibition. the Lolly exhibition.
Yeah.
For this, guys, Ryan and his team got Cannes, G&G, One Show, Clio, ZDCC, Art Directors Club, Webby, Communication Awards, Muse, Capos, Gary T, CMA, PR Week, and among other Apply Arts, PR Daily. So everything, pretty much. Can you tell the listeners who never saw this, Ryan, and students who maybe in September they are in first year and never heard about this?
Yeah.
What is the concept behind it? And because I was blown away by this, is it's amazing work. Please describe to us the concept.
Totally. Yeah. And it is very sensitive for whoever's listening. And I think
Yes, very
it,
sensitive.
it was gut punching to work on it, but by far the most rewarding thing me or anybody else who worked on it has ever done. So it's for the Canadian Center for Child Protection. And what they do is essentially help children who are being abused in different ways. And so, what our project was is we found out that essentially online predators call their victims lollipops or lollies, and so that's kind of a representation for people sharing like child sex images online, like nude images of kids and images of kids being abused. And it's pretty disgusting. Like it's gross.
Taking it.
Yeah, and so our challenge was that with a topic like that, like child sex abuse, it's people don't want to talk about it. Like it's such a bizarre, disgusting thing, but nobody wants to have a conversation about it. And at the same time, if you put out like a print ad or something, people are probably just going to turn their eyes and ignore it. And so we had to find a different way of kind of making people talk about it. And so, we had different thoughts, and what we ended up coming up with was an exhibit. So our exhibit called Lolly, the exhibit nobody wants to talk about, essentially looked like one of those like Instagram candy shops on the outside. So it was like fun and vibrant and the type of place you'd go and snap 10 silly Instagram pictures and post and tag your friends. And then when people walked in, what they saw was 10,000 lollipops kind of all over the room. So like literally floor to ceiling lollipops of different color. And what those represented was, for each one, it represented an image or an image of a child that was shared online over a certain time period. And as people kind of walked in this exhibit, they saw different stats about how bad the problem was in Canada. So part of the issue is that a lot of people think this only happens in third world countries, but it's actually pretty bad at Canada. And the worst part about that is a lot of the victims are actually abused by family members, by friends. It's like a lot of them are under 5 years old. It's disgusting. And so to kind of make people aware of that problem even more, we had our stat at the end, so people would walk through, they would see what that final stat was with a definition of what lollipop actually meant. So it was a bit of a mystery till that point. And then we had the wall at the end with that stat, and we had stories playing from victims. So people talked about their experience, whether it's a friend or a family member abusing them, and it's just it wasn't shock and awe for the purpose of shock and awe. It was to create change about this. And all these images exist all over the internet. Something like Twitter is one of the worst offenders, who they had tons of images on there. And essentially this Canadian Center for Child Protection has a program that works to flag all of these images and get them taken off the internet. And the number is staggering. It's in the millions. And so for us, kind of the most gut wrenching thing is our exhibit, I think, was up for 3 or 4 days at Stack Market in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had one of the victims who flew in from New York with her mother to see the exhibit and thank the people that did it. And for us, that was just mind blowing that somebody said like, hey, like, I can't believe somebody is doing something about this. And essentially it led to press coverage, and it led to conversations in government, and yeah, it was nice to work on something that made a difference like that.
Right. I think it's just. I think it's everybody thinks as advertising is the evil of the world sometimes,
Yeah,
something like that. And I think it's no, it's the sometimes it's the power to change it. It's the power to get information, and you and the whole team that works with you having the guts to make something like this in one of the heaviest subjects of any person could handle. It's it gives me praise. It's this is what I this is the kind of stuff I would love to every single student to involve in a project
yeah,
like this for any kind of cause, to have
totally.
the awareness of that. And it's not,
Totally.
it's exactly, nobody wants to talk about it. And everything that you can talk can be interpreted in a different way. And people are so heavy about this, as it should be. And I think you interpret and put it in a way that was extremely powerful.
Yeah, and it's rewarding doing that. Like I love selling beer and candy and sneakers and you know anything under the sun. That's things that I like anyways. But yeah, it is very nice, having that power to actually do something about it. And just thinking about those ideas, like if you don't have a client, you can always find one. Like there's so many issues out there, and I think that's another thing I try to do is like when you look on social media or read the news, there's literally hundreds of problems every day out there in the world, in Toronto and Canada.
Mhm.
So there's always something that can be done by somebody. That's kind of how I try to look at it.
By the way, we're recording this. The Russia invaded Ukraine just a few days ago. So just another thing
Yeah,
to happen on that crazy world. And well, I'm glad. So thank you so much for that work. I will get through three more pieces here because some of the pieces Jordan already described to me
yeah,
on his interview. And if you go back to Jordan Little Up interviews, a lot of his work was done with Ryan, like the ninth phase of the fans. That was another amazing work that you guys did. I saw also the Kemen Riker. I want to talk about the dairy farmers of Ontario, of
yeah.
putting humanizing the product, the milk product there. What is the brief and the process on that? Can you describe to the students how was that work, Ryan?
Yeah, totally. The brief for that was actually just to get people to drink more milk. So I think, a lot of the times it's here's like the swirling milk in a glass, and there's been a lot of great ads for that. But I think this one they wanted to put the face behind dairy essentially. And we spent probably a month touring farms all across Ontario, meeting different farmers and their families, and not having much knowledge about how dairy farming actually worked.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of getting a peek behind the curtain and just like watching what they do and how they do it, and they're they're the most down to earth, genuine people you'll ever meet in your life. And we said like, hey, we're advertising people from Toronto. We know nothing about this. Tell us everything about this, or tell us why you do it. And in that case, a lot of the farmers are actually generational farmers. So their parents did it, their grandparents did it, their great grandparents did it. They're usually third, fourth, fifth generation people. And when you talk to the kids want to do the same thing too. Like they don't want to do it because they have to, and they're 10 years old working on a farm sweeping up hay in the barn. Like they love it. Like that's their it's not just their livelihood, it's their passion. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
the one interesting thing a lot of the farmers talked about is that when a lot of the kids reach a certain age, like young adulthood, essentially they're encouraged to go do something else off of the farm, whether it's going to school, whether it's finding another job. And I think they all kind of have that experience to get another taste of the world in some sort of other industry. and then most of them end up coming back to the farm, whether it's working on their parents' farm or starting their own farm. It's something they're passionate about, and I think that's something I didn't necessarily realize before that. Um, so it was nice just to kind of tell stories about people who love what they're doing, and like literally the whole point of what they do is to produce dairy for people in Ontario, like something you might take for granted that's sitting in your fridge every day.
How was that process of creating that kind of awareness of that farm tradition and family? You have a conversation with the families and the producers. How was that? The focus groups, how was that? Or you went to the farms?
Literally, we went to, I don't even know how many farms. We spent probably a few weeks scouting different farms in different parts of Ontario, meeting people and hearing their stories, and like literally watching them and asking why they do it, and what they want people to know about their story and their family story. And I think that's the important thing, where as much as it's like a bigger brand selling a dairy product, it's still all these kind of salt of the earth
Let me
small
say that
farmers.
those pictures that you guys have in the ads was taken during those visits.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
So
god, very much in the spot.
yeah, it was Chris Gordonier at Westside Studios, amazing photographer.
Okay.
He did such a great job of capturing those, and then our director is Hubert Davis, who's an incredible director. He's done a lot of amazing docu-style films. But
Hmm.
yeah, they did such a great job of just capturing the realness of it, and I think it was super important for us, obviously, to make it look good, but not make it too
Which
commercial.
which
Like
agency? Which agency was this?
that was at No Fixed Address.
No fixed address. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just important to make it seem like these real regular people are the ones kind of doing all this incredible work for everybody all over Ontario.
How was the outcome? Client was super happy and
Yeah, they were happy. I think everybody was. It was just nice to kind of hear a different story from, it was all real farmers. They weren't actors. So with that, sometimes there's challenges with having somebody who's not an actor tell their story on camera.
of course.
You have to kind of find different ways of getting them to open up. But yeah, it was nice just to hear it kind of in their words.
Yeah, I think we can develop an empathy for to those
Totally,
people and consequently to the product. So I think you guys
totally.
did a great job on that. I went through already with Jordan too about the Farina, the fortune teller. That was an amazing, funny campaign, and we get to two others. As I said, I wanna. How about this changing the label of the Alberta Made Budweiser to the names of the cities? How was the problem, and how you want to bring Budweiser into Alberta?
Totally. Yeah, that was an interesting one, actually. So a lot of people don't know that in Canada, Budweiser is actually produced in Edmonton. So they have a few places, but Edmonton is one of the big breweries there, and they essentially just wanted to get more market share in Alberta, and that was kind of the brief. And so we kind of started thinking about ideas, and we saw Budweiser had the America in the States, and I think the Budweiser can is so iconic. It's hard to change that can. Like most brands don't want to change their packaging, right?
Hmm.
And so we just had the idea to come up with a different name. So in Alberta, it was Alberta Made. And the one thing we loved about that, it wasn't just kind of the beer itself. It was more of a spirit of people. So saying you're Alberta Made was kind of like a badge of honor for people. And essentially, we launched it at the Calgary Stampede with the country singer Corb Lund, who's this kind of badass, like country, you know, shit kicking dude. Um,
Hmm.
he was the perfect embodiment of that, and we hung out with him, and we literally toured around Alberta. I think we flew into Edmonton, and we filmed a docu style video on the way to Calgary. So we stopped in small towns, went through the mountains, would literally film an oil rig. We would film horses. We ended up at a ranch that we, had beers around the campfire with all these people where that's
Right.
literally
This
their life.
looks like a dream project.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And, that didn't cost a lot of money, and it's our vision was to do more of a documentary style thing, and we spent, I don't know, I think it was like 2 weeks out west,
Mhm.
doing everything, and it was great. It was just, figuring it out as we went along, and then it all kind of wrapped up with a concert at the Calgary Stampede, which was super fun and an interesting way to shoot it.
So it was so how was the approval process when it comes to it was a limited edition with the package change it? How was that thing?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to rewrite, like, all the Budweiser cans have like that little thing at the top called the creed, and
Mhm.
that never changes. It's very seldom changed. And
Sacred.
I think
Okay.
there's like one typographer that, um anytime it changes, he's the one that has to do it. So I was lucky enough to rewrite the creed for that can to be more about Alberta. So that's one of my favorite things. I still have one of those cans sitting around somewhere. So it's definitely one of my favorite things I've been able to work on.
Probably it's a collector's item for people who
Yeah,
get
I'd be
Budweiser someday.
curious. I'd be very curious.
Last thing I wanted to say, the X campaign that you wanted to change the whole perception of X being the teenager trying to get laid, and as
Yeah.
you wrote here on your and try to be the entrepreneurship self-maker 20 something. Big shift here, and how was the brainstorming on it, and what did client ask you to do?
So it actually started as a pitch. So that was kind of
The
part
reverse.
of the
You
part of
did
the
it
pitch
the first.
idea. Yeah. So it's interesting shifting the perception because I loved all those old Axe ads growing up of
Of course, iconic. Yeah.
silly, funny, here's some wacky stuff. So in Canada, it was interesting. That was kind of the first thing that took it a bit more serious. So we just kind of met people that were, self-made people, doing something awesome in the world. And we did it kind of docu-style. So we had a phone conversation with them, asked questions, called them back again, asked more questions. So we had kind of the story in mind, with what we wanted to do, and then we would go to their space. So we had like someone who made custom suits. We had like DJs. We had like a brewer, and then I think, hearing what they say in their words, and then figuring out how to put it back to them. So when you're filming with them, you know the right story beats that you want to hit. So you kind of have the story in your head,
Hmm.
then you have to figure out with the director the right questions to ask to get the answers that you want them to say. So it was very interesting shifting acts to be a bit more serious, and then they ended up going back to a bit more lighthearted again after that. But yeah, it was definitely a fun project to work on, and again, I've been lucky enough to work on a lot of brands that I kind of looked up to, and as a student, that ultimately I got to do a project for, or many.
I will get through. Um, I will extend to two more very quickly.
Yep.
The one is the Bud Light with the NFL teams stamping on the cans.
Yeah.
How was that thing when it comes to the semifinals or something? You start throwing the during events and throwing the cans with the logos. How was that whole process?
Yeah, so that's one of my favorites. I'm a big football fan, as you mentioned, and
I can imagine that.
yeah, and one of our account people wanted to make sure Jordan and I worked on the project, knowing that, and so it was a pretty fun, lengthy project. So I think we had a lot of ideas, knowing Bud Light was going to make new cans with the team logos on it. That needed to be kind of the focus of the campaign in some sort. And
Hmm.
so with that, we threw in lots of random ideas, just selfishly as a football fan. What would I want to do? Where could I go? Who could I meet? What would other football fans want to see? And then kind of our thought was who you got. So it's pitting team against team through the, through the actual can itself. And so a lot of product focused spots are the same kind of thing over and over, where it's like, open the can of beer, here's the swirling beer inside of it, here's somebody holding it up to camera, whatever that might be. We wanted to make it seem like, here's a bunch of football fans having beers and cheering for their team. And then through that, what we're actually able to do was one of my favorite things. We were able to swap out our end slates based on the matchups of each week.
Oh,
So I think we had like three or four, like Thursday night game was big, Sunday night game was big, Monday night football. So whatever teams were playing those bigger games, we swapped out the end slates to be their cans. So if it was New
okay.
England and Oakland, that's what it would resolve on. And then we had the same thing with banners. So I think on NFL.com, we would have the two cans kind of face off against each other based on the matchup.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the exact number of ads we made, but it was crazy,
I can.
based on the matchup. And then again, one of the other things with that brand at that time was all about experiences, real people. We don't want to show actors. We want real people experiencing our brand. And so we kept pitching this concept over and over and over. And I'm a fan of New England, and I knew they were playing that year in Mexico City. And that was kind of our golden version. We need to go to Mexico City. We need to go to the Patriots game. Pitch this at least 10 times. It got to the point there was an earthquake in Mexico. The stadium was damaged. They didn't know if this game was going to happen. And then it was kind of off the table. One day, our client called us out of the blue and said, "We're going to Mexico." So
Oh,
thankfully, we went to Mexico for a week or whatever it was. We shot an experience with real fans, met some of my favorite players of all time. We stayed in the same
my
hotel
God.
as the Patriots, went to the
Wow.
game, somehow saw the Foo Fighters in Mexico. Yeah, it was just an awesome experience, and I think that's one thing, post COVID, when shoots happen again, I think there's a lot of amazing experiences like that can come your way.
Dream stuff that only happens in advertising. It's amazing that they know that you are guys are into football and they reserve that client to people who understand it. So that's great to hear too. I can imagine you being there, Ryan. I think it would be like a smile ear
it
to
was it was a fun week, I will say that.
ear. Well, on the last one, before we're going to the final three questions on our interview, the My North from Sport Check. I think it's a project here that I say mind blowing illustrations and the typography in it. It is very warm, nice art direction, and you really have a lot of character to put into this project. How was that one?
Yeah, that I actually lucked into that project. So there was a team working on that, and the writer was on vacation for a few weeks, so I was able to kind of step in when the ideation was still happening, and then worked with the art director and 8,000 designers to try to figure that one out. And again, as a big Raptors fan, a basketball fan, I think I got super excited with that, and we burned the midnight oil for a while trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And then someone had the idea, of creating these basketball maps for each kind of borough in Toronto. And the artist was Carson Ting, he's a BC based artist who does phenomenal work, and he did these for each of the neighborhoods in Toronto and kind of planted all these little Easter eggs within each borough, and they were like phenomenal. And so I think there were a lot of parts of that campaign. There was, documentaries about different people to tell their story, and like they were broadcast on TSN and at the games, and it caught a lot of traction. But I think just in terms of simplicity and awesome craft, I think those posters were phenomenal. And I still have them. Like I was like, I need every one of these printed. I'm gonna get them and I'm gonna put them away. I need these.
Oh,
Um,
those posters are really something.
yeah, it was
Uh,
great. And like we had people who, just basketball fans bugging us. They're like, send us the PSDs, like give me a give me a high res PDF. I want to print that. Like I need that in my house. So I think, when you get something like that, same as like the Nike Face of the Fans posters, like buddies were messaging me saying, hey, like send me the DeRozan one, send me the Corey Joseph one. Like I need that for my place. So I think when you
Mhm.
can kind of go from making an ad to something people actually want, like that's a pretty big deal. And I think that's the thing I get super excited about.
You guys really need to go through Ryan's website and take a look on this project and all the other work here because it's really something. It is a very respectful body of work for 10 years, Ryan. And I know it's just once again on your book there is just a glimpse of work because I know hundreds of other projects are not in your book and because he cannot put in everything there.
Yeah,
uh, Congratulations.
awesome.
Very super respect. I would go to the final part of our conversation now. It is, first of all, did I ask everybody, tell me one or two of your biggest memories from your years at Mohawk.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just having such an awesome crew of fun, weird, curious, creative people. I think our class was one of those classes that had so many awesome people that, we worked well together. And I think as a writer, I had such a like massive list of talented art directors I could work with.
Mm-hmm.
Many of whom are, super talented people at well respected agencies with awesome jobs in the industry now. But I think we all just liked hanging out together. Like we would literally spend Wednesday, Thursday night thinking of ideas and then going to drink beers together and doing the same thing at lunch, like just hang out in the cafeteria talking about stuff and experiencing things and going to concerts together or just doing stuff outside of the classroom. And I think it built such a good bond with a lot of people. And we pushed each other because there were so many talented people. You wanted to be the best, and you didn't want somebody else coming up with a better ad than you. So I think it just built this awesome core of people that you wanted to be the one getting the awesome internship, and a lot of us did because of that. So I think we put in the work, and we didn't, of course we of course we screwed around at times, but
It's part
uh,
of the process.
yeah,
Part of the things you.
of course there'd be times we didn't go to class, so obviously. But I think we all just knew that we wanted to succeed in the industry, and it was awesome having that push from each other and the push from the profs to get there.
Well, and from the last question here, from the I think is the what are the qualities you want to see in people who seen the book, students? All the if you are in third year, what kind of advice you wish you heard from somebody in the industry, and it's coming from Mohawk or any other ed school. What do you think are the skills the students should have, and what do you like to see in a book?
Totally. Yeah, I think you know you want to see a breadth of thinking. Like you don't want to see 5 or 6 campaigns that feel like the same 5 or 6 campaigns. And I think back to the point earlier, of course, do the projects you're getting through school, but then do other work to build out those campaigns. Like you want to see well-rounded thinking, so not just 3 print ads 5 different times, or you know, here's my book, 80% of it's billboards. So I think showing a range of thinking is important.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of breaking out of your comfort zone. Again, being a student now, you can do literally whatever you want. There's nobody stopping you from taking any brand that you like or any brand you want to do something for and doing it. That being said, think about, the 8 zillion amazing Nike ads that have been done. If you're a student trying to do a Nike ad, it better be the best friggin' Nike ad you've ever seen in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's being mindful of what goes in your book. Um, you know, sh- Showing your thinking. You don't necessarily have to have perfectly crafted ads, but I think like thinking bigger is super super critical. Like what's the big idea? You don't necessarily have to go out and shoot a 60-second commercial as a student, but like what's the thinking? Once you start working in the industry, you're going to have people that shoot it for you. You're going to have more resources. You're going to have a studio to help you comp up images, and um like just thinking big and swinging for the fence, I think is super important. Like don't play it safe just because of the amount of people that are kind of out there in the same position as you. It's harder to get noticed by people. um so I think like finding that one thing that makes you stand out is super critical. And just devoting yourself to what you want to be. If you want to be a writer, work hard at your craft. If you want to be an art director or designer, like learn everything you can and find the people that inspire you and chat with them and buy them a coffee, buy them a beer. Especially with like COVID times now, like if everybody's at home all the time, hardly any people are in the office. It's actually easier now to kind of get a hold of people, and like people are on their computers literally all day. So just find the people you want to learn from and learn from them. That's probably the most important thing.
What are the things that you're as a person reviewing a book, when it comes to craft, specific to craft, that is say, as a student portfolio, I can live with it, and what you cannot live with it,
Yeah,
even as a kid?
I think it's the details. Like especially as a writer, spelling and grammar. If you have mistakes, it's not just in the ad itself, it's in the write up to an idea, it's in the insight that you're showing. I think you have to pay close attention to everything that's on your page. That said, maybe I have 30 mistakes on mine. Call me out on it. But yeah, I think it's just paying attention to the details. And I think knowing when people spend time on something is pretty obvious. And again, if it's not perfectly crafted, that's one thing, but I think you can usually tell when someone gives a shit about what's on their website and when somebody doesn't. So I think just making it very apparent when you put the time and effort into something, because I'm probably going to know if you have or haven't done that.
Last final
Yeah,
final words, Ryan, to the
yeah.
student.
I think for me, it's just work hard, and if somebody's willing to help you, like they're not just paying you lip service, they're there to help you. And I find the biggest thing for students is sometimes if they get feedback on their book, they just kind of disappear, maybe don't work on it, and then they'll send you mostly the same book. So I think if it is somebody that you want to work with, somebody you want to work for, it's go that extra mile and show your effort and show why they should tell somebody else about you. I think is the biggest thing.
How the students can reach you?
Um,
LinkedIn is the best, or your
you can stalk
why?
me on LinkedIn, and hopefully not too many stalk me and message me. But yes,
Okay, so probably if you are in third year, almost getting your book, yes, but as an ACD, it's crazy the time crunch on everything for Ryan. So LinkedIn is the best way, and www.ryanchiasson.com to take a look on Ryan's work. Ryan, thank you so much for being here, and let's see if we can get a catch a High Cats game together,
sounds
or grab a beer in Toronto, or a DCC again.
sounds good. Can't wait for it.
This is the end of another Cast episode, Tales from Mohawk Advertising Program. We are 2 episodes away for the end of season 2, and today I have a pleasure to have Ryan Chiasson from ACD at Ogilvy, Canada, here with me, class of 2011. Thank you so much, Ryan.
So later.